Future Ghost America.
Across the United States, hidden in forests and buried under decades of silence, stand the remains of forgotten asylums, places where the walls still whisper, where the air feels heavy with memories that refuse to die, where doors slam with no one behind them. For decades, thousands lived in these institutions, not as patients, but as prisoners of fear, neglect, and misunderstanding. Today, these buildings are empty, but something inside them never left. In this documentary, we will explore the most terrifying abandoned asylums in America. You will hear their stories, you will feel their histories, and you will walk into their shadows. Welcome to the creepy abandoned asylums across the USA. We begin with Penhurst State School and Hospital in Pennsylvania, a place abandoned for more than 30 years, yet still alive with something unseen. Penhurst opened in 1908 and closed in 1987. Originally created for children and disabled individuals, it became overcrowded, understaffed, and overwhelmed by abuse and neglect. Investigators uncovered beatings, medical mistreatment, and horrific isolation methods. Children as young as 5 were locked away here. Visitors today claim they still hear voices, whispers, running footsteps, soft crying in buildings where no child has walked for decades. The underground tunnels beneath Penhurst stretch for nearly a mile. These tunnels were used to move patients in secrecy. Explorers report echoes, footsteps, and small footprints appearing in the dust, leading into sealed rooms that have not been opened since the 1980s. But the most feared location inside Penhurst is the Mayflower Dormitory. Inside its decaying hallways, wheelchairs remain scattered. Mattresses still have restraints attached, and whispering voices drift through empty rooms. One explorer recorded a voice saying, "Don't leave me," followed by a small silhouette leaning from a doorway before retreating into darkness. The room that silhouette came from has been sealed since the asylum closed. Penhurst's darkness deepens in the quarantine building, where violent patients and neglected individuals were kept, sometimes for days without care. Room 32, known as the Screaming Cell, was Sutton-proofed. Visitors report voices, pounding, and whispers that warn, "Don't open the door. Penhurst is only the beginning." The next asylum is considered one of the most terrifying in the United States, the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in West Virginia. In the quiet hills of Weston, West Virginia, stands one of the largest and most imposing asylums in the world. A building so massive and so intimidating that from a distance it looks more like a fortress than a hospital. This is the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. Built in 1864, it contains miles of corridors, hundreds of rooms, and a history soaked in fear, tragedy, and the darkest corners of human desperation. From the moment you approach the building, there is a feeling that something is watching you from the windows. Visitors often describe an overwhelming sense of being observed by eyes that are no longer human. Inside the asylum, the atmosphere changes sharply. The air becomes heavier. The silence feels unnatural. Shadows seem to move at the edge of vision. The Civil War wing is one of the first areas to reveal its past. During the war, soldiers died in these halls. Their presence still lingers, seen as shadowed figures that appear briefly before dissolving into the walls. By the 1950s, Trans-Allegheny was designed to hold 250 patients, but it held more than 2,400. People slept on floors, hallways, and in storage rooms. Violent and non-violent patients were kept together. Children were housed alongside the criminally insane. The asylum descended into chaos. People vanished, people suffered, and the building became filled with pain that never fully left. The nurses' wing is one of the most active areas of the building. Visitors report seeing a woman in white walking down the hall, keys jingling behind them, doors unlocking on their own, and a soft lullaby like humming drifting through empty rooms. Thermal cameras have captured a figure sitting on a bed in one of the nurses' quarters. Though nothing is visible to the naked eye, the 4th floor is the most feared part of the asylum. It was not meant for healing. It was meant to lock away the dangerous and the forgotten. Cells remain intact with metal bars, bolted doors, and layers of scratch marks. People who visit the 4th floor often hear footsteps running toward them, voices whispering warnings, and the overwhelming feeling that something tall and dark is standing behind them. One famous EVP captured a chilling message, "Get out, Ward F." Another part of the asylum holds the spirit of a man known as Louis. He suffered from untreated schizophrenia and died alone in the asylum. Visitors hear him calling softly for help, whispering phrases like, "Is someone there?" and "Don't leave." When an investigator once asked what he wanted, the recorded answer was, "A friend." The most well-known spirit in Transallegheny is a little girl named Lily. She was born inside the asylum, lived here her entire life, and died young. Visitors leave toys in her room, and the toys move by themselves. Flashlights flick on when her name is spoken. People feel small fingers tugging at their clothes. And a rubber ball once rolled across the room as if pushed by an unseen hand. But the darkest part of Transallegheny lies behind a wall that was never meant to be opened. A sealed chamber, a room with no number, a place where screams have been recorded, even though no one alive has been inside for decades. A room known as the Chamber of Echoes. The Chamber of Echoes is one of the most disturbing discoveries in the Transallegheny Lunatic Asylum. It does not appear on any official blueprint, no records mention it, and no staff member ever admitted that it existed. The room was discovered by accident in 2008, when restoration workers broke through a weakened section of wall. Behind it, they found a chamber with no lighting, no windows, and no furnishings. The air inside was freezing cold, and the walls were covered in deep claw marks. No one knows who was placed inside that room, or why. But investigators have recorded voices near the sealed wall, including screams, begging, and a whisper warning, "Don't let it out." Whatever happened inside that chamber remains a mystery, a dark secret buried behind stone, left to echo through the building. With the shadows of Transallegheny behind us, we travel next to one of the most infamous and chilling institutions in the United States, a place known worldwide for suffering, death, and unexplained activity. Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky. Originally built as a tuberculosis hospital in the early 1900s, Waverly Hills housed thousands of patients at the height of the tuberculosis epidemic. Treatments were often experimental, painful, and deadly. Patients endured lung collapse procedures, rib removal surgeries, ice chambers, and harsh chemical injections. Many did not survive. So many died, in fact, that the hospital constructed an underground passageway to transport bodies discreetly, so patients would not lose hope. This passage became known as the Death Tunnel. Today, Waverly Hills stands as one of the most haunted places in America. Visitors entering the building describe an overwhelming sense of being watched by multiple unseen presences. Cold spots move through the halls, shadows dart across doorways, and voices whisper in rooms that have been empty for decades. The fifth floor contains the infamous Room 502. This room is linked to the deaths of at least 2 nurses, one by hanging and another by falling from the balcony. People who enter Room 500 to describe sudden nausea, dizziness, and the sensation of unseen hands gripping their arms. The most chilling encounters at Waverly Hills occur in the Death Tunnel. Visitors hear footsteps behind them, even when they are completely alone. Some hear a woman crying softly in the darkness. Others see a shadowed figure crawling on the ceiling. One explorer reported hearing multiple voices whispering his name, even though no one in the building knew who he was. Among the spirits that linger in Waverly Hills is that of a boy known as Timmy. He is believed to be playful, often moving balls and toys left in the hallway. However, witnesses report that the childlike silhouette they see has no eyes, only empty shadows where eyes should be. Waverly Hills also hides a room created for experimental treatments, known as the pressure chamber. Visitors report an intense feeling of suffocation when entering. Some hear breathing that is not their own. EVPs captured inside include voices asking to be let out, and another saying, "We're not finished." At the heart of Waverly Hills is the operating theater. Many experimental surgeries performed here ended in death. Shadows gather around the operating table, as if reenacting the final moments of patients long gone. In 2018, investigators captured footage of a tall figure standing behind the operating table. It appeared to be wearing a surgeon's coat, but its face was blurred and distorted. When the team approached, the figure turned and walked toward them. All the lights in the room went out, and the investigation ended abruptly. Waverly Hills holds countless stories of pain, hope, and despair. But our journey continues on to one final location, an asylum surrounded by quiet fields, where the dead do not rest, and the forgotten call out for anyone willing to listen. Rolling Hills Asylum in New York. Rolling Hills Asylum in East Bethany, New York, stands alone in the midst of quiet farmland. It is a long brick structure with a history defined by abandonment, loneliness, and human suffering. The asylum opened in 1827 as a poor farm, a place for society's unwanted, the sick, the homeless, the mentally ill, veterans, orphans, and the elderly were all sent here. Most were buried in unmarked graves across the property with little more than a single word written in the ledger. Deceased. Their identities were forgotten, their memories erased, but their presence remains. Many visitors describe Rolling Hills as a building that still feels occupied, not by the living, but by the echoes of those who died within its walls. As you enter the asylum, the long central hallway stretches into the darkness. Doors stand half open, as if waiting for someone to walk through. Many who visit claim to feel as though they have stepped into a building that is still full of people, just not people who can be seen. The deeper you walk, the colder the air becomes. Faint voices drift through the hallways, whispers, murmurs, and sometimes conversations that seem to come from rooms that have been empty for decades. Among the hundreds of lingering spirits in Rolling Hills, to have become the most well-known, Roy the Gentle Giant, and the Shadow Man. Roy Cruz was a man born with gigantism, abandoned by his family. He lived in Rolling Hills for most of his life. Despite his size, he was described as kind and gentle, with a childlike personality. He enjoyed music, companionship, and simple kindness, things he rarely received. After his death, many visitors reported feeling large footsteps behind them, hearing deep humming, and seeing a massive figure standing quietly in the dark corners of the dormitory. Some believe Roy still wanders the hallways, searching for the companionship he never had. Unlike Roy, the Shadow Man inspires fear in almost everyone who sees him. He appears as a tall, dark silhouette with elongated limbs and proportions that do not match any human figure. Witnesses claim he crawls across walls, moves in unnatural patterns, and blocks hallways without making a sound. Many investigators believe the Shadow Man is not a lingering spirit, but something much older and far more mysterious. Thermal cameras fail in his presence. Laser grids bend around him. People report a crushing sense of dread when he appears. One investigator asked aloud what he wanted. The Shadow Man tilted his head slowly, almost curiously, before vanishing into the dark. The morgue inside Rolling Hills is another place filled with emotional weight. Here, the bodies of those who died anonymously were prepared for burial. Some visitors feel overwhelming sadness. Others hear whispers, soft moans, or footsteps circling the room. Many feel hands gripping theirs, as if someone is asking not to be left alone. The solitary confinement cells represent some of the darkest memories of the asylum. These small, pitch-black spaces were used to isolate patients for days or even weeks. Even now, visitors hear scratching on the walls, banging, and breathing that seems to come from nowhere. Some have been pushed or held in place by an unseen force. But the most chilling part of Rolling Hills is the vocal hallway, a long corridor known for capturing an extraordinary amount of auditory activity. Visitors walking through the hallway often hear voices calling out, footsteps following them, and whispers saying their names. Dozens of voices have been recorded at once, overlapping each other, young and old, male and female, crying, praying, begging, or simply speaking as if going about a normal day. In 2021, 2 investigators placed a recorder on the floor of the hallway and walked away. They left the building entirely. When they returned and reviewed the recording, they found something remarkable. Dozens of voices spoke at once. Some whispered, some cried, some gasped for air. Then, after 18 minutes, every voice stopped. The hallway fell completely silent. Then a single phrase was whispered by many voices in unison. "Don't leave us again." Some believe these voices belong to the forgotten, those who died without family and were buried without names. Others think something darker might be imitating human voices. Rolling Hills Asylum is not simply a haunted location. It is a place filled with the emotional footprints of lives forgotten by history. A place where the dead speak, not to frighten, but to be remembered. These asylums across America remind us that suffering leaves scars long after the buildings are abandoned. The walls remember, the shadows remember, and the memories they hold linger in the silence.
Until our next nightmare, see you in the darkness.